This is the January 8th Planning Board meeting. Our first item on the agenda is the public hearing for the petition zoning amendment, amending subsection 4.46G and adding a new subsection 4.46H. So that is the description. I can go ahead and read what G amended would say, and that is that any building that is outside the Lyme Center, Lyme Common, or commercial zoning districts may be converted into no more than 6 units.
Can I be rude and tell you, I know he can't hear you very well. Is it all right
Okay.
to
It's not rude.
speak up a little bit, please?
Okay, sure. So the first section of the petitioned amendment is a paragraph G that goes under section 4.46 as it relates to conversions. And in that it says, any building that's located outside the Lyme Center, Lyme Common, or commercial zoning districts may be converted into no more than 6 units. It's also proposing paragraph H, which is all new, and that is saying that for any building that is within the Lyme Center, Lyme Common, or commercial zoning districts, if the building is more than 5 years old, it may be converted into no more than 6 commercial units, and any number of residential units that fit into its existing structure, plus up to 15% to accommodate changes to the structure to support the conversion. And if the building is less than 5 years old, it may be converted into no more than 6 units. I think what we can do to start this public hearing is, if the petitioners want to speak to their petitioned amendment, I think that would be appropriate.
Do I need to, or should I have?
Do you want to?
Not necessarily, I don't know exactly what he wants me to say. I don't wanna say the wrong thing.
Well, it's just a question of, introducing your amendment and what you think it's going to accomplish, perhaps.
Yeah, so Pat and team have proposed an amendment that would allow existing buildings in certain portions of town to become multi-dwelling units by adding the number of units that would fit into the space without significantly increasing the footprint of the building. And the idea would be that if you took a building, for example, Dowd's Inn, which would be able to accommodate multiple dwellings, it already has multiple rental units in it for short-term rentals, that this would enable you to take a building like that or any of the other buildings in these areas and turn them into multi-dwelling units. It would not support the building of new units that would be multi-dwelling units, and it would not support additional multi-dwelling units outside of the specified areas in the proposed Warren Amendment. But it would be a step towards taking the real estate that we already have and allowing it to support additional residential housing that could support seniors in town who might need to downsize, who want to stay in town. It could support workforce housing, and which we need for the school, for our local restaurants, for things like that. And so the idea would be to make a step in the direction of increasing our housing, but without taking it outside of certain districts and without taking it outside of existing units.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
For those of us who are name challenged, could you tell me who you are?
I can't.
I don't know who you are, I just wanted to.
Oh, I'm Lynn Partial,
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. Thank you,
and I was just speaking on Pat's behalf, so.
thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
a point of order, I just got a text from a friend who says it's very hard to hear on the Zoom. Is there any way to turn that up?
Not that I'm aware
Okay,
of.
all right, thank you.
It's always gonna be hard to hear, I think, for people
Yeah.
speaking out there, and maybe for us too, but.
So, board members we should open the discussion with comments from the board members. Go ahead, Tim.
So I just to get a little background, it's not easy to write a change to the zoning. Because it really has to be in what they call legalese. And that, because it needs to be written, so it can only be interpreted one way, hopefully. And so when the planning board writes or changes the zoning, usually we have to get attorneys' input and all this stuff. And it takes quite a while because it's, it has to be in that legalese. So I know you guys didn't have much time to write this, but I think there are some problems here where it could be misinterpreted or could be interpreted different ways. So I think David's gonna have a really hard time even making decisions about, making decisions on it. So, I don't know, maybe some of the other members can discuss some of the details, but, I mean, one thing I would say is that, one thing that stands out is that it says the structure can be increased up to 15%, but what does that 15% mean? Is it 15% of the total living area? Is it 15% of the footprint? So I don't know how, you could really interpret that, so.
Am I allowed to talk, or are you guys just talking among yourselves?
I think we're talking amongst ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I just want to bring that up, that it's not, it's difficult to change zoning to make it really in legalese. And unfortunately, I think what you guys wrote, I mean, we understand what you're maybe trying to do, and I don't have, personally, I think it's fine. I think it would be probably good to put housing in Dow's Inn, or whatever. But I think there may be some problems with this, what you guys wrote, because I don't know how we're gonna interpret it.
Vicky?
I just, and this would be a question that I don't think anybody here on this board can answer, but I did want the proponents of the petition to answer. And whether or not you necessarily have to have commercial with the residential units, because there's an and in there. So it may be converted into no more than 6 commercial units and any number. So does that mean that you have to have commercial in each one of the projects
I
that would have residential?
Discussed that with town council, and their
Uh-huh.
interpretation of it was and/or.
And/or, okay, good, well, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, another point of order.
Mhm.
I know that Pat Pippin and Liz Carey have been working with Kristen Kelly, who I see is now on the Zoom. I guess the question is, Pat, would you like Kristen to say anything here? Or, and Mr. Chair, would that be appropriate for her to speak on behalf of Pat?
Speaks to legal question.
Talk to me a little bit more, I'm sorry,
Okay, I'm sorry, Pat.
I'm not asking, I'm not
Yes.
hearing what you're asking.
Okay, I see Kristen's on the Zoom now.
Yeah, she would love to
Okay.
say anything.
Would it be helpful for you if she were to speak for you?
Of course it would be, she's got all the information, thank you.
Okay.
Sure, I think we'd be happy to hear from Kristen.
Okay, to the extent that the board is done discussing among yourselves, I'd gladly jump in if that's appropriate. Okay, good. I wanted to introduce myself on camera, but I will jump off camera so I can read from a prepared statement to keep me sort of on point. That will, as I'm reading it, get to the explanation for why I'm here as a non-Lyme resident, and hopefully will speak to some of Pat's intentions and the other people who are in support of this amendment. But if you don't mind, I'll turn my camera off and I'll read, and if you have trouble hearing me, please let me know. And I did want to say for the record that this is a written statement, so I can provide it to the board for their consideration if if it would be helpful. So let me turn my camera off.
That would be great, Pamela.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Chair Menji, members of the board, and Lyme neighbors in spirit, good evening and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Kristen Kelly and I'm here at the invitation of the petitioner, Pat Pippin. My name is Kristen, as I said, and I am an aspiring Lyme resident, and I rise to speak in favor of the proposed amendment to section 4.46, which is intended, as you've noted, to support the adaptive reuse of older buildings in parts of Lyme in a manner that preserves character, encourages reuse appropriate to its setting, is responsive to the needs of Lyme's residents, and does so by way of a purposeful and collaborative process. Respectfully, I'd like to explain my connection to Lyme and my interest in this issue, and hopefully in the process, I'll establish good faith and credibility with the board and the community. So I'm going to address what I'm calling the genesis of this proposal, the spirit of the proposed amendment, and finally, the letter of the amendment. And I'll close with a mea culpa that addresses some of the lack of clarity in the language, and propose a means to try to close any real or perceived gaps between the intent and the outcome. I do consider myself Lyme adjacent with a credible Lyme CV. I grew up next door in Hanover, and my dad was the head athletic trainer at Dartmouth for over 25 years, and my mom worked as a bank teller and an Avon lady. I graduated from Hanover High in 1987 and went straight to Dartmouth. At Hanover, I was the secretary of the high school council, and 30 years later, I retired after 30 years. Well, I retired from a Fortune 100 company in Boston as the company's assistant corporate secretary. So that governance background gave me a little information and knowledge, which, as you know, can be a dangerous thing. Being from Hanover is not the same thing as being from Lyme, I know. But beyond my connection to the Pippins, I have a deep love for this town. I was a resident of Hanover through my formative years, and I grew up with a lot of my Lyme classmates. My very first boyfriend was a Limey, and we spent a lot of time snowmobiling and dirt biking in the woods. I learned to ski at the skiway, had my bridal shower at Dowds, and I've been back for weddings, graduations, reunions, Thanksgivings, 4th of Julys, and so on. I can't omit that I spent countless hours at the Lyme Country Store. J.J. Pippin is my oldest friend, and Pat and Tony Pippin are my second parents. My older brother is Tony Pippin's best friend, and I grew up going to Liz Pippin's theatrical performances and continue to this day going to Margaret's. I spent my days from the time I can remember at the Pippin's store, first for fun, then for work, then mostly doing hard work while having fun. Recently, I opened the store with JJ, working the cash register for the first time in over 30 years. And I was amazed at how quickly I fell back into the old routine. Tony Sr. bringing in fresh-baked donuts straight from Mrs. Pippin's kitchen at 6 a.m., Tony Jr. making sandwiches, JJ doing inventory, a line of hungry workers on their break coming for the best sandwich in town. And with every patron that I helped at that cash register, I got a tap on the shoulder from one of the Pippins explaining the special treatment that customer was to receive. And that brings me to the genesis of the proposed amendment, which I think is important in this context. And the genesis is Pat Pippin, who I hope by now has demonstrated a continuing interest in boosting the community. Setting aside the fresh-baked donuts, she has planned who knows how many 4th of Julys, Christmas tree parties, mahjong matches, and so on. She is at heart a steward of the community, and I trust her implicitly to have the best interests of the town and its residents at heart. One would be hard-pressed to find a more well-intentioned advocate. In this instance, Pat, who upon hearing a need from her neighbors for more affordable housing, including me, who upon retiring and trying to find an off-ramp, wanted to return to the Upper Valley but have been priced out, and sought guidance from the planning board and other town officials to put forth a proposal that attempts to address the needs that she's has heard from her customers and friends. She's been making a good faith effort to adhere to the guidelines. So as a starting point, I'd say you couldn't ask for a petitioner who who has demonstrated more of a continued interest in making Lyme the best community it can be. With respect to the spirit of the proposed amendment, and I think Lynn captured that, adaptive reuse is an approach that prioritizes the continued use of existing structures by thoughtfully adapting them to current needs, minimizing land disturbance, and it's not a mechanism for expansion or sprawl. And in fact, it's sometimes one of the last planning tools available to allow older, often oversized or obsolete buildings to remain in productive use. In towns like Lyme, the alternative to reuse is often neglect, vacancy, or eventual demolition, followed by replacement structures that may be less contextual and more disruptive. Thoughtful reuse can therefore function as a growth management strategy, not a growth promotion strategy. Lynn, I think, addressed the other intentions of the amendment, so I won't reiterate those. But I will address then what I'm calling the letter of the law, which is the language that we find ourselves with today of the warrant, which is admittedly imperfect. As a self-proclaimed governance geek after all these years in a corporate governance space, I know full well that the devil is in the details and how important process is to the successful operation of the town, and how this process specifically benefits the town's voters by emphasizing clarity, consistency, and transparency. Unfortunately, in this instance, I fear we arrived at this point with warrant language that didn't achieve these goals, and I wanted to address it as the person who held myself out as someone who could help Pat move this project forward. The language of the warrant, as you've noted and is currently written, is imperfect. John Stadler provided a letter to the board in advance of this meeting in which he noted that the wording and implications of the amendment raised very complex issues, then followed with a well-reasoned list of those complex issues. And as the purported shepherd of this project through the process, I feel I owe Mrs. Pippin, the board, and the community an apology for the language as of this date not being adequate as it relates to the goals of clarity and transparency. As a procedural matter, the cancellation of the December planning board meeting resulted in there being no remaining opportunity prior to finalizing the warrant for us to seek clarification or address internal consistency issues such as those identified by Mr. Stadler. As a side, I blame my assumptions from being in my role as the corporate secretary and being the owner of language that was put before a board and iterating and changing that language up to the minute of the board meeting. I made some assumptions about the ability of the petitioner to provide changes and got caught up not realizing that the changes that would be presented today would be uneditable by us. And for that, I apologize to Mrs. Pippin, and it puts us in a position that we are today. As I was ruminating about this, I had a thought that I'd like to share with the board, not only to alleviate my guilt, but with the intention of supporting informed voter decision-making and defensible administration of the proposed ordinance. As the planning board now remains the only body with authority to make any further language enhancements, I respectfully ask that the board consider using this authority to propose language changes that clarify intent, reconciles internal conflicts, and otherwise helps align the spirit and the letter of the amendment. Using Mr. Stadler's language as a starting point, I did draft some alternative language that may address some of those issues, and again, I willingly share it with the board for their consideration. In conclusion, I appreciate the planning board's ongoing work on the proposed amendment and its broader responsibility to steward Lyme's built environment thoughtfully and with the concerns of the community at the front of mind. I support the underlying goal of adaptive reuse as a means of preserving the town's existing buildings and village character, particularly in a community that has been cautious about growth. I remain hopeful that the board's discussion and recommendation will help voters understand that adaptive reuse, when carefully considered, can help protect Lyme's character with the interests of the community at heart. When I used to spin my wheels about details, an old boss used to say to me, "Kristen, sometimes good enough is good enough." I don't think that this warrant is good enough, but perfection is the enemy of progress, and I hope that semantic imperfection doesn't stall this opportunity for collaboration between Mrs. Pippin, the petitioner, the town, and Lyme residents. I appreciate the board's consideration of my comments and its continued commitment to a careful, transparent zoning process. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kristen, and I think you have brought up, maybe perhaps it is the elephant in the room here, and that is, at least myself, I've identified a lot of inconsistencies with the language, and some contradictions amongst the points of this amendment to the existing zoning regs. So I'm glad that you brought that up and agree that there are some issues there. I believe that it's my understanding that the board is not able to make any changes to the language at this point.
No, the board is not.
So the amendment that has been submitted is the amendment that the town will have to vote on. And it's also the amendment that this board can either vote to support or not support. And so I think that that's where this discussion needs to be directed. I have a list of some of the inconsistencies or conflicts within this, which I'm happy to share at this point, and maybe other board members have some other concerns. So as we start looking at the zoning ordinance is a legal document that the planning board and the zoning board are subject to follow. One of the introductory portions of the zoning ordinance indicates that where there's a restriction or a standard imposed by the ordinance that conflicts with another, the provision that imposes the restriction or higher standard shall govern. So I think that it's unfortunate that that there are a number of these contained within these two paragraphs. The first one, as we're looking at paragraph G, paragraph G allows up to 6 units in any of the districts other than the Lyme Common, Lyme Center, and Commercial District. But this conflicts with paragraph 4.46A that only allows a single dwelling if the building did not have plumbing for the previous 5 years. So we've got a conflict right there. Another conflict is...
May I ask a question about that?
Sure.
I don't understand how that's a conflict given the way you started, which is you said the most restrictive is gonna limit. If the most restrictive is gonna limit, then obviously that most restrictive is gonna apply to the new 4.4G. And I would say that the new 4.4G does is limit it to certain areas. It does, and so if, to the extent that that was a limitation, it was a conflict before any proposed amendment.
Well, I'm just stating that there...
No, I mean, it's my question, and my
there are
question is, I'm having trouble understanding how
Well,
that's.
I guess the point is, I think that we should be trying to draft something up that's not full of conflicts, that we should try
Well,
to avoid
I understand, but the
conflicts.
the old section G was identical except for the exclusion, except for the limitation to certain areas. So, to the extent that the plumbing issue was an issue, it would have been an issue under the old section G as well. I'm trying to understand.
Okay, well, your concerns are duly noted, thank you, Lynn.
I just hoped you would explain it to me, because I'm not
No,
an
I'm
expert in-
just saying that's my concern.
But how is it different in the old G and the new G? That's my question.
It is not quite sure how to.
Do you, maybe I'm not explaining. To the extent that there was a section G, and you've now pointed out something that says it had to have plumbing for certain plumbing, how is that different for the old section G in terms of a conflict in the new section G? That's all I'm trying to understand, so I can
Sure.
work my way through this.
Well, we may have to come back to that.
Well, I think, I was gonna say, I think there might be another conflict with table 4.1.
I think the 4.1 conflict is a more important conflict, which only applies to A through G, and it doesn't apply to H. But that I would suggest is a change that the planning board is free to make and propose to accommodate this warrant article. Because it does only apply to A to G, and I agree with that. And we've now added H, and it should apply to H as well. But that is a change the planning board could make to accommodate a new section. Were you to want to support this amendment?
But we can't, unfortunately, we can't change it now. We can.
No, you can make changes to other sections, you can't change our warrant article, I understand that.
Well, the planning board can't make changes to the zoning ordinance, they can propose changes at town meeting, and it gets voted on at town meeting.
Yeah, so you could make that proposed change at town meeting in parallel with our proposed warrant, and then everything would be consistent. So I'm not asking you to change our warrant, I'm asking whether, if the planning board were to support the warrant article, that you would propose parallel changes. And my understanding is that the deadline for warrant articles that applies to petitioners does not apply to the planning board.
Right, the deadline is going to be somewhere in the first week of February.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I agree that there's a conflict and it probably exists here, but, I mean, what we're envisioning is converting structures that are served by wiring and heating and plumbing, right?
Right.
So A is.
Could you speak up a tiny bit?
Okay, I agree that there's a conflict existing today, between A and G, but I'm also thinking that what we're trying to do is to facilitate the use of a building that currently is served by wiring and heating and plumbing, and the situation where it's an old barn or something like that, that can be remedied, next year. So I don't think that necessarily kills what, I think what we're trying to do is the reuse of buildings that currently
Right.
have all those things.
Right.
So that's something, we need to make a note of, we can
Mhm.
fix. There's
Sure.
other things we can fix, but I don't see that that's a stopper.
Okay,
Okay, so, but it's right that it's a conflict, and
It's a-
it's currently a conflict, so, with G. So
Okay. so, proposed paragraph G allows conversions up to 6 units in districts that are not currently allowed. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but this conflicts with table 4.1 that does not allow conversions in East Lyme, the Skiway, the Mountain, the Forest, or the Holtz Ledge districts. So, again, that's
The
another
proposed
conflict.
G, I think, only changed the areas. Can you look at the old G and the new G, the new proposed G?
I can't look at them together, but I do have them, the old
Yep.
G just says, no more than 6 units shall be permitted in any
Yeah.
building.
So, that's a concern.
But I think the only change to G was to add specific areas. So to the extent that there was a conflict, I believe, I don't have my zoning book in front of me, but to the extent there was a conflict.
If you wanna look at this,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, to the extent there was a conflict, the conflict existed before our proposed amendment, because the current says, no more than 6 units shall be permitted in any building. And I believe all the amendment did was add, except in these three areas, so,
But key to the focus of that is that, the very beginning of 4.46 allows for the conversion, to those areas that are included in table 4.1.
can you? Yeah, and as I said, in table 4.1, if the planning board were to support this warrant provision, all you need to do is add section H. Right? Because right now it only has A through G.
Well, section H kind of describes a new kind of conversion, so
Yeah,
and so it's not like we only have the office, studio, restaurant conversion, it's, so this is a section H conversion, so we would need to add like a new use, right?
yeah. To table 4.1,
Yes.
yes. Yeah.
And there it would only be in 3 districts.
I guess I'll just continue through my
Right,
list
yep,
here.
yep.
The proposed paragraph H conflicts with paragraph F, which requires that at least 40% of a residential building floor area be retained for residential use. Paragraph H, the new paragraph H allows for an entire residential building to be converted to non-residential use, which I suspect is not the intent of the petitioner.
But we're not talking in the proposed H about the conversion of a residential building to a non-residential use. In our proposed H, that's not what we're proposing.
No,
I would just comment on
What you're
that.
proposing allows an entire commercial, a residential to be entirely commercial.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. It says up to 6 commercial units.
That's correct.
And that is exactly the same as G says, which exists today.
No, G just talks about 6 units. It doesn't talk about.
G isn't limited to residential units. A current.
It's talking units, it's not talking about, it's not specifying which. So, in any event, I'm gonna keep going through these as we and the board discuss this. Proposed paragraph H allows immediate conversion of buildings less than 5 years old, which conflicts with 4.46A, which only allows conversion into a single dwelling unit if there's been no wiring, heating, or plumbing for the previous 5 years.
So, I believe if you look at the language of 8, it says it's limited to buildings more than 5 years old. It doesn't say immediate, it says it's limited to buildings more than 5 years old.
No. Structures which less than 5 years old, or structures which were not served by wiring, heating, and plumbing during the previous 5 years shall not be converted to any other use than a single dwelling.
Yeah, I know, but our proposed H is for buildings that are more than 5 years old.
That's correct, and I don't know, it's confusing. I think the other thing that was mentioned is the 15%, and what does that mean, and also the language as, in terms of how does fit, and what does fit mean, particularly in relation to parking, sewer, water, recreational areas, waters, waste and storage areas. So those are some of my concerns. I think that, I think that the intent of the change is certainly commendable. I think to try to put this together in hopes that at a future town meeting we can make changes is not something that I'd be in favor of doing.
I would say two things. First of all, we tried to get commentary from the planning board, and the planning board canceled the meeting for other reasons not having to do with us. And so we did, as Kristen said, make a good
It's-
faith effort.
Oh,
I think,
absolutely.
other than the question of whether the 15% is clear enough, all of these other issues can be addressed by the planning board offering an amendment to section 4.1, to the table in section 4.1 that says all of these things have to go through all of the plan review, making sure that we have adequate parking, sewer, all of those things that table 4.1 requires. And the fact that H isn't in 4.1, and Kristen and I would both agree, we should have figured that out, but we're not zoning experts, and it would have been nice to get some guidance from the planning board, but we understand why we were unable to do that. But it would be a relatively minor change in parallel with the warrant article that we're asking, that would, some of these problems, I think, are inconsistencies that exist in our current zoning law, and we shouldn't be expected to fix inconsistencies in the current zoning law because we've made a warrant amendment.
Right.
But if the planning board was supportive of this for all of the really important reasons that Kristen put forward as a way to manage our older buildings, to have some moderate growth in town in a way that, without poking the hornet's nest, might be responsive to some of the things that the town has said in the survey about housing needs, I think there are things that the planning board could do in advance of the annual meeting to put forward an amendment that would clarify these things without changing our warrant amendment. And we would request that you do that. Or that you consider that.
Any other comments, David?
I don't know, it sounds like what we're being asked to do is, we submitted a warrant article at the last minute. We didn't have time to get your input, because we only had it prepared at the very last minute. And there's things that are wrong or missing in it, and we'd like you to fix them.
Yeah.
There is one section that needs to be amended to include section H. That is it. I mean, that's not,
I respectfully disagree.
okay.
Vicky?
Well, I appreciate the effort that went into what is before us now, because I think it's a lot more inclusive than the first one that came in, and I think it addresses what I feel is our target areas for increasing density in the town. So I like what is here, and, I was kind of wrestling with, like, what is a conversion? Because we have in table 4.1, this office, restaurant, studio conversion, and then if you go to our definitions, we just have conversion. So it's, I don't really feel like what we have in table 4.1 is a good thing, the modifier for conversion there doesn't work for me really either. You see what I'm saying? It just, and it doesn't match the definition, so, and I believe there does need to be a different conversion that's allowed in only the 3 districts. Because I think that's consistent with what we've been wanting to do in terms of, infill and increased density and adaptive reuse is really focused on where we have good transportation access along Route 10, the commercial district, and in our village centers where people can walk to services. So I don't think it would be impossible to add a different kind of conversion. I haven't thought about what that would be called, that's only allowed in those 3 districts as a amendment to the zoning, because I think that's very simple. I think that there's a lot of other things that need to be addressed, but that will take a couple of months to address all those things, and would need to be an amendment for next year. I guess I have a question about, would it be impossible to go to the zoning board to get a variance for this kind of conversion, since it's not the conversion that we've been talking about, and whether or not David would be able, given, because you've had some conversation with town council, assuming there was a proposal that were to come through for conversion of a lodging accommodation in the Lyme Common District for a multi-unit dwelling, would you be able to give that a zoning permit with the stoppers that everybody has brought up?
The,
I know that puts you in a bad
it
spot.
does, my two concerns are the fit and the 15%. I don't know if, somebody came to me and said, I wanna increase the building by 15%, the
Right.
language doesn't tell me what that 15%
Right.
is, and that makes it very difficult. It was something I would probably end up denying, and telling them that they would probably need to appeal to the zoning board of adjustment
Right.
and see if they would, rule on that.
I like this amendment, I think it's a
Yeah.
good idea, it just seems that the i's aren't dotted and the t's aren't crossed, and that was sort of, my biggest question is, if this passes in its current form, are you able to administer it?
Well, I'm happy for it to go to the zoning board. I mean, because that's an appropriate place for neighbors to come out and talk about what does fit really mean, and envision what the 15%, well, I know, it's sending them, but it's also, this is it would be a holding place for hopefully something better for our, for allowing conversions that would, anticipate something like this. Personally, I'm a little uncomfortable with the high number of commercial units, because I don't understand how that, but maybe that's the model where it has to be downstairs commercial in order to support the upstairs residential, like you see in other village settings.
The concern I have with that also is, there, I think that, there is one primary use on a lot. And so when you have commercial and residential on one lot, other than through planned development, I don't see how you can.
Right, well, that's why this is a different kind of conversion
Right.
than what we've had before, and it needs to have a name, and I don't know what that would,
I like the adaptive reuse, I think that was a great term for. and-
David, may I ask you a question about denying permits with the 15% and it being unclear? If somebody were to come with a plan, so
Yes.
say this passed, and you said, well, it can pass, but I'm gonna deny all the permits because I don't know what 15% means. And somebody were to come and they had a proposal that had a 1% change in the footprint, would you feel like that was comfortably within 15% of something that it could pass? Or if it had 0% change in the
Well,
footprint?
0%, and one of the other things I would be looking at is, we calculate a footprint for a lot.
Yeah.
What a building, and if it's within, if the increase is within that allowable footprint,
Right.
then I have no
So-
problem.
So there might be things that because of the vagueness of the 15%, you would have to say no to because you wouldn't know what it meant. But if it were within some penumbra of that,
Yeah, there are situations that I can see that I would allow
Yeah.
expansion.
Yeah.
But the 15%, that not having, and I know the intent.
it's imperfect, and a year later, maybe it could get amended, but.
Yeah,
but-
and it just, that one makes me uneasy, not because of, I understand your
Yeah.
project 15%
yeah.
of footprint, and
Yeah.
I get that, not a problem.
I
But-
get it, I'm just trying to understand if it were to pass,
Yeah.
and as the planning and zoning administrator, you would say, if you wanted very much, I'd have to turn it down. If somebody didn't want very much, you'd have to say it, you, with all of the other caveats of things that a project would have to be approved for, you'd say yes.
Well, I'm not gonna guarantee anything until I see a
Yeah,
plan and
yeah.
I get, because I don't know.
Right, all of the
but
details of any particular
I
project.
certainly would get people before the zoning board of adjustment
Right.
to, and it would be an administrative decision.
Yeah, Got
And
it.
that is appealable to the zoning board, by the zoning board, and I would get them to the zoning board.
perfect.
So
But certainly if somebody had no changes to the footprint,
then that wouldn't
Yeah.
apply, and
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can kind of see, was it 15% of wastewater flow, or 15% of the number of units? I mean, it's
well,
really
that's-
so wide open.
that's
that
what were my
it's
issues.
crazy, yeah,
the-
yeah. I wish it had been a little defined to say 15% of dimensional standards or something, so that we knew what that focus would be, or 15% of the parking. Needed.
Yeah, and the fit also, I have some issues with that, as far as who makes that decision of fit. Is it the applicant, is it the planning board, is it me? I don't know that, but that doesn't bother me as much because, there are constraints. You know, if somebody says, I wanna add I can fit 20 apartments in a building, and the lot can't support a septic system,
right,
then,
then you've got that
I,
constraint.
I feel that would break the fit.
It also is the case that people are presumably doing these things for commercial purposes, and they've gotta put something in that somebody's gonna actually live in.
And, I think parking is an issue, we've seen
I know,
a lot of
that may
things
be a
with,
stretch, but,
a lot of issues, this year with
Yeah.
the state legislation, dropping the required number of parking spaces, which sounds great, but, when all of a sudden, Nick here is writing tickets along the backside of the common because people are
Yeah.
parking because they have
They
no
don't have-
parking in their
I got it.
building, that becomes a problem.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So David, in section 4.46, wouldn't E, or would E, ensure that whatever would be put in
Yes.
there would have a proper septic
Right,
system?
and
So,
that's why I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah,
that the
yeah.
fit, septic
Right.
system, that would,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't have the room for the septic
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
that wouldn't,
but that would be a plan review.
site plan
constraint.
review
Yeah.
and right here in the zoning.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think the planning board would ever be opining on fit. It's the zoning board that
zoning
would
board
be,
would
be. Yeah.
and we would just be reviewing a site plan that would
Right.
come with, that has already been determined by either David or the zoning board.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't deal with that.
And I am not sure if the state has a minimum size for a dwelling unit. That's something I need to look up if this passes, because that would also affect
Yeah.
fit, if there's a minimum square footage that is allowed. But,
You know, it's kind of concerning that you could have a building that has 100 people in it and they're living in, like Tokyo style, little cubicles or something. Maybe that's not something we would want.
Someone should go live in.
Tim, any other concerns at this point?
Well, I mean, I guess in the big picture, my feeling would be that the planning board could take the time next year to write another amendment that would really work, and maybe even add some other things. It just seems like that would be make the most sense to me. Because if anybody wants to start thinking about putting housing in Dowds, it's gonna take certainly more than a year to even start, to get everything started.
I'm sorry, Tim, I can't hear you.
He's muttering.
But he's not muttering, I just
No.
don't hear well.
Oh, he's muttering.
No, I was just saying,
What did you say?
I just think that it makes more sense for the planning board to spend next year, because it takes a long time to write the zoning amendment. Write one that is really good with input from everybody, and maybe even add some other things to it. Because I don't think it's gonna hold anybody up, because it's gonna take more than a year to get any of this stuff going, even if you can anyway. So it's not like, you know, you need an amendment right now to, because you're gonna start putting stuff in.
So, yeah, what I would say is, we would love the planning board to do that. That would be really fabulous, and I think, as, you know, Kristen laid out really well, this idea of adaptive reuse is a great idea, particularly for towns with larger, older buildings that might be torn down and you build some big mega mansion instead of using it to solve, you know, some potential housing problems. The problem is, there are some people who have specific projects that aren't gonna wait a year, that may not wait a year, to know whether they can move forward or not, and that's not the planning board's problem. That's the problem of, you know, a series of individuals who all, I've heard, have different projects that they're interested in, you know, a change like this. So my question is, it's provocative, does this warrant article, because there's a petition, have to go in front of town meeting? I mean, can the planning board say no?
Nope, not
We
at all.
can only recommend or not recommend.
You can recommend or not recommend.
It's an
And
advisory
it
vote.
wouldn't preclude the planning board for doing something much more thorough and thoughtful for the next year
That's
that
correct.
would
Right.
That's correct.
really
Yep.
be
Yeah.
beneficial and
Yeah.
move this forward.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm in favor. I
Is
think that's a
that-
great idea. I think the
Yeah.
idea
That's
behind this
right.
is great. I just think it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
imperfectly
well,
implemented.
no, and we really appreciate the support from the
Yeah.
planning board in
Yeah.
thoughtfully approaching this.
And the planning board, we've already been talking about zoning amendments anyway, but it does take a long
Right.
time. You know,
Well,
it's not-
as you've instructed us, these things are really
Yeah,
complicated.
Yeah, plus we have other things besides that to do, so,
I
yeah.
think Kristen has had her hand up a couple of times, so I don't know if she wanted to.
Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
I was just gonna say, to state the obvious, that Pat is 86 years old, so a year is a long time. Just a little dark humor.
Yeah. Biggie.
You know, kind of no matter, I mean, I'm really glad that Pat brought this, but I believe that, whether Pat is with us or not, that it's gonna go forward as a good idea, okay? So if, I'm not saying, Pat, I hope nothing happens to you, but I believe that there's a momentum that's, you know, gonna push this
I
through.
want something to happen here.
And I feel like even though this amendment is flawed, that it'd be really interesting, and it's gonna go in front of the town meeting, to see what people say anyway. And, so I'm happy that it's going to town meeting, cause we'll see if people really, you know, feel it's important to, you know, do these things. So that's,
But part of that is gonna, I think a big element, at least for me, a big element of question of how appealing is it to people in town is what David tells us about whether or not he can administer it if it passes in its current form. If he says,
well,
I don't know what I do with this thing, it's gonna tie me in knots, that's a hard position to put our employee in.
It seems to me though that this, you know, the conflicts with 4.1, to
David,
me,
move your
sorry,
hands out.
this to me is a multi-dwelling conversion.
yeah,
And when you get right down to it, and multi-dwelling conversions are allowed in table 4.1 and by site plan review. And so I see no issue with that. The 15% I have an issue with, just because I'm unclear. And the, again, fit, I wish there was a better way of putting that that we had a good way of judging what fits.
I wish we had a better way to.
But other than that, I don't see any huge issues. Some of the conflicts, I think there were conflicts, as you said, they were there before. And it is the more restrictive language that will govern. So I think in some cases, you know, the 5-year, if you have a structure that is, you know, I'll use a garage as a example, if somebody's trying to convert a garage into 6 dwelling units, even though H says you can, you go to A, and A restricts that. So I would, stop a plan right there saying, listen, you can't do that. So I think there are things that could be written better. I think the board, if they wanted to take that on, that would be great.
So what I'm hearing you saying is, in some outside cases, you don't know how to deal with this, but in other cases, you probably can.
Yes, I think, and I think, again,
That's helpful.
if there's issues, I can send people to the zoning board, and the zoning board, they're going to, they have nothing to go on but the language.
Right.
And so they will have to make a decision.
But I think, David, one problem might be if the zoning board makes a decision, but it's not clear in the zoning, or the way it's written, then anybody could just contest that, and it would end up in court, it would be.
It very well could,
And that's the problem with not having it written really clearly, because anybody can just contest it.
Well, not anybody was standing.
Yeah, well, right, anybody who hires an attorney can do it.
Well,
So,
not
yeah.
necessarily anybody can hire attorneys, they have to have standing to.
Right. So I think that's one of the problems of not having it written really clearly.
John Stadler?
Yeah, I think this is from what I'm hearing anyway, a great opportunity for the planning board to take what is, in my opinion anyway, a flawed amendment and do what you need to do. This is a really good foundation for you. I mean, I would rather not have an amendment pass where there's so much confusion. But if you can get an amendment done for next year with input and not race through, that's just my personal opinion.
Yes, ma'am?
May I just steal, I just have a question of, some of you have been on this board for over 40 years, and tell me you started out with perfect things that we haven't made amendments over time anyway. Why is this so different? Because you
Well-
guys were the ones that made the first mistakes to have to amend them later,
Right.
instead of coming from the public. I'm just being very curious, because amendments can be made, and can amendments even be made on the floor?
No.
Like by you, right?
No.
No, they have to get theirs in by February.
Oh, by February, okay, but so any tiny discrepancy, nothing big is going to, nobody's gonna go cheat. Yeah, I mean, we don't have that many buildings in town, that if we got it going this year, that another amendment could be, modifications could be made after we saw how it was working. Because I think there was an issue of not having, with that canceled planning board when it's not a full-time, that did cause somewhat of an issue. So even though, we were told that it's not, so what, it was an issue.
Go ahead, Vicki.
From my opinion is that were this to be approved at town meeting, it would enable project to go into planning and design, and it's very unlikely that a zoning permit would actually come to David before a year from now, honestly. That's
Absolutely
right.
I mean, it takes over a year to build a house.
Say this passes and you have it in effect for a year, and then we dive into it and we produce something that's, modestly different or a little different, or changes something, or, for example, it clarifies
Right.
what fit means,
Right.
and there's a difference there.
Right,
Somebody who's in planning, are they subject to the old rule, or are they subject to the new rule?
they're subject to the new rule, assuming that they haven't applied for a permit. If they apply for their site plan or their zoning permit, that's when the rule will kick in. And for zoning, it's actually that once you've posted, it doesn't have to go to town meeting. So it's once you've posted. And, but you know, I personally don't have a problem with the density. I was a proponent of like not having a density on, and everybody's gonna like, oh, it's so horrible there now on East Wheelock Street in Hanover, but it's like, you know, it's not up to, I felt as though it was up to the designer and the owner to say how many units could go into whatever the shape box they wanted to put there. And that was, and that's kind of what we have here. It's like they're gonna produce units that are marketable for whoever they feel their audience is. And, so I'm okay with us not saying, oh, there needs to be 3 units per acre or whatever, that's fine. But I do believe that what impacts the community is the bulk, and that 15% makes a difference if it's, you know, up against somebody else's property line and that type of thing. So to get that clarified is really important just in terms of community impact and visually and for
You know,
neighbors.
but right now, we can't really, we don't have anything to say about, you know, what, I mean, if we draft something for next year, we'll have input, we'll be
yeah,
able to
well,
decide what we
yeah.
think the rule should
Yeah.
be. For right
Yeah.
now, all we can do is say, do we recommend that this,
Right,
do we recommend
right,
this for town meeting, or do
totally.
we not recommend it?
Yep.
Right.
I don't know,
Yep.
it's kind of tough to recommend, I
Well,
think.
it's risky for them to go forward, you know, with a purchase and sales and spend any money on design, not knowing exactly what the zoning is going to be also. So it's kind of a good faith thing that, you know, we're trying to increase housing in some ways, and this is certainly one way that it could happen in a location that we feel is a positive one for the community.
Rich, I think, Liz Ryan Cole would like to.
Sure.
Oh.
Go ahead, Liz.
I just unmuted myself. I'd like to be clear. Is there any reason that the planning board couldn't take this proposal and make the changes you believe need to be made and have that voted on at town meeting
Not enough time.
Well, there's
And-
also 2
this
proposals.
year?
Well, this proposal is going to town meeting as written. There is no changing it, there's no, so if the planning board takes and does another competing one and they both pass,
The
then
more restrictive applies.
the more restrictive applies. So,
I think
May I
the
ask
bottom
a
line
different
is-
question about the planning board's recommendation? Because I hear some support for the sentiment and actually much of the content of this proposal with, you know, David's concerns about some of the areas of applicability. Does the planning board need to say, we support or we don't support? Or can they say,
You can't.
you can't say,
We have two
we
choices.
support it
recommend or we
except if
don't.
it's more than 50,
Or we recommend by
Yeah.
a majority, and what we do is we say we recommend, and it's either unanimous.
That's
It
usually is.
the language is
or,
approve or disapprove.
Yeah.
Is,
The language is in the statute, you
Yeah.
can't even
Yeah,
modify
no,
the
no,
language,
no,
it's crazy.
I sort of
I know we had
assumed that
something on the
was the
select
case.
board this year where I sort of felt like, I don't know, I'm happy to let people vote on this. I voted to approve it so that it would go to town meeting, but I don't know that
Yeah.
I actually approve it. I mean,
Right.
but there's no option for that. I
There's
can't,
no option
I
for
can't
that.
say.
And is there commentary that you write about why you don't approve it if you're
No,
gonna?
No, there's the
No,
hearing,
it's just-
the
yeah.
minutes of the meeting is all.
Yeah, just
Perfect.
on the ballot, it will say the planning board approves or the planning board disapproves, and that's,
And it will have the minutes of this.
the vote is recorded on this.
But the vote is recorded, what the vote was.
Yeah, and you could stand up in town meeting and say, here's how I feel about this.
Yeah.
And-
Except it will be on a ballot, so it's not something that's voted on as,
Oh, yeah.
Town
yeah,
meeting
so-
talk about
So
it.
just to clarify, what will happen is that this is on the ballot, the all-day ballot.
Yeah.
And so, a little town meeting,
Yeah,
which is the week
The-
before, there's an
right.
opportunity for people to discuss it. There's not a debate, there's not an opportunity to modify, but that's when you could bring out the conversation and someone from the planning board could speak to talk about their piece, other people could share that information. The challenge is, yes, this conversation here is not likely to be well distributed among people unless someone chooses to do something
Right,
to do
that's really
something,
helpful,
yeah.
thank you very much.
Rich has got to put it up on the internet, so.
I always do.
So, is there any other public comment? Okay, any other board comments, because at some point we need to, I would entertain a motion to,
Before you do that, Nat is missing, so you'll need to, or Nat Niles is not here as a member, so you need to appoint an alternate.
it's my understanding if we have a
Or,
quorum, then we're all set,
Okay.
so I don't see the need for an alternate.
Okay.
It's disgusting.
yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say that my feeling is that it's not worth passing this because of all the problems, and it sounds like what we're saying is that nobody's gonna bring anything up within a year anyway, as far as, just any projects. So I think it'd be better for the planning board to write another amendment that would be better, and for next year's town meeting.
Which is what I think we're committing to do.
Yeah, so, but I don't think this should I don't think just passing this and sort of a,
So is that a motion to not recommend? What's the,
To approve or disapprove?
to disapprove?
yeah, yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So any further discussion?
I'm gonna just say why I'm gonna vote, how I'm gonna vote is because I feel as though, that I would like to see projects like the conversion of Dowds go forward, and, that I feel like, though flawed, I'd rather not put a stopper personally on that kind of momentum, and so, yeah, so that's why I'm probably gonna vote the way I'm gonna vote.
Right.
Which,
Okay.
See, I don't think it would put a stop on it, but whatever.
well, yeah. We'll see, well, town meeting's gonna be the stopper, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the town meeting will be the,
And it's not just this effort, but, I mean, there's a family that wants to get rid of that building, and I don't wanna see it demolished. I'd like to see it reused,
yeah.
It's not
so,
gonna be.
I agree,
Yeah.
I'm totally for reuse, and, I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
the easiest thing to do is to bring a bulldozer in and start from scratch, and that's not desirable, in my point of view.
right,
I guess the concern I have is that, is there anything preventing a conversion from tearing down the building or major parts of the building and rebuilding it? I mean,
No.
we don't have any guarantee that
no,
when push comes to shove,
no.
that
No, you.
all or
would be-
part of the building
No.
could end up getting
And
demolished.
remember Tim had a proposal from the historic commission that would delay the demolition of a historic structure, and we decided that wouldn't be in the town's best interest. So Tim tried to, put at least delay thing in, on behalf of the historic commission.
Right.
And so we have nothing that protects any of our, you could change the facade and put glass on the front of Dow's, or the, Latham Manor.
So, I mean, it feels to me like we're kind of almost creating a spot zoning issue here, where we have someone who, in good faith, is wanting to do something with a building. We're saying, yeah, we think it's a great idea. We're going to support an amendment that is then going to require us to correct the deficiencies, and hope that this project goes forward without a major tear down of all or part of it.
Or some ambiguity that results in litigation and a big mess.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if it makes you feel any better or worse, but there are at least 2 other projects in consideration for slightly more than 6 units in existing buildings that people are considering and are hopeful that this amendment will allow them to proceed forward. And I would say probably all of these projects will not happen if, you know, they're being looked at a year and a half from now. That's not intended to be threatening, it's just information. Because as we worked on this, other people came to us and said, yeah, you know, I have something that I would like to do as well.
Well, there's no guarantee that your group is gonna get those properties anyway.
No.
Because the zoning obviously
Absolutely no
opens it up
guarantee.
for other investors
Right.
to take advantage of this change in the zoning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Right. Well, one, not to get into too much detail, but one, I know, having done construction and whatever, I know that if you put more than 2 units in a building, an older building, there's a lot of requirements that have to be met. Now, Ray Clark, when he did his condos, that's why he had to tear down the L, because he couldn't meet those requirements to put 4 units in one building. So he had to build a whole new building.
There are all
separate-
sorts of things
separate.
like
So Dowd's-
elevators and all sorts
Yeah,
of things
well,
that you need to do.
Right, so I'm not trying to put cold water on it, but Dowd's is gonna have to meet the same requirement. One is that the walls have to be fastened to the
Yep.
foundation. Ray couldn't do, you can't
need
do that.
sprinklers, you need all sorts of things that
Well-
might make any of these projects
Right.
undoable.
Right.
But if you have people who are willing to see if they can do it,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I think that's
But
been
I think
a
that's the
problem,
first step.
is
yeah.
that we need the people to guide that through. And, you know, because obviously the private market is not creating that type of housing in this community, so we need local effort to secure the property and make it happen.
And
So-
without recommendations, that might not happen.
Right.
so David, could you tell us again what the motion is?
Tim has moved to disapprove of the amendment,
Okay,
and David has seconded.
okay.
So you're gonna have to explain what a negative and a positive meant.
So voting yes means you do not support the
Yes.
amendment, and voting no means that you do support the amendment.
Okay, I think it's time for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye, raise your hand. All those opposed? So. I-
Sorry, guys, I mean, I think this is a great idea, and I'm happy to work on it all next year and
We really appreciate the sentiment,
try to get it right, but it.
the sentiment of the planning board. I get the sense at least that you guys all understand and acknowledge what we're trying to do, and hopefully will work with us on a way forward. We're
Totally happy to
actually
do that.
we're very enthusiastic about taking this to town meeting, and are hopeful that it will pass and give David the headaches that he's trying to avoid.
Maybe
And,
it might.
and I would especially like to emphasize that the reuse of these buildings, I think, are a significant, improvement or a significant advantage to, you know, maintaining, you know, the village that we enjoy. And, you know, I'm hopeful that we can, when we can put something together, that we can allow that to, or certainly encourage that and to dissuade that, because, you know, when I redid my house, you know, the bank and the appraisers all told me to tear it down. And, you know,
Well,
it's,
We're sure
It's a
you guys
sad
will
thing.
do a better job than we did, but we hope we did a good enough job that the town will support us in moving it forward.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that people have to vote.
Yeah, I just think it's hard for us as a board to, at least it's hard for me to recommend that we enact something that we know is flawed.
I got it, I understand,
Okay,
okay?
well, thank you very much. I know some of you may be here thinking that we were gonna discuss the housing survey, and that's not on our agenda tonight. If you're sticking around, we welcome you to stick around, but we won't be talking about that on our agenda.
That will be on the agenda on the meeting, for the meeting on the 22nd?
Yes, I have you already on the agenda.
Just so the people, all of those people out there in audience land, the 22nd, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's like that every meeting.
So our second item is a continuation of the Downs subdivision.
We have one person, Jonathan Vogel, has.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, Mr. Chair. Does that mean that you're restricting public comment, not to permit comments about the planning board's actions on the survey?
We're not discussing the planning board's actions on the survey tonight, that's correct.
So you're not allowing public comment on that issue?
Well, I don't know if we're gonna have other business at the end of the meeting tonight. That could be other business at the end of the meeting, but we've got a pretty full agenda. It's on the agenda for next meeting.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Okay. So, David, we have some additional information that has been provided by the applicants for the Downs subdivision.
Yes, they have corrected the plat, they have created, I've gone back through the area calcs. One other thing that I admittedly missed was that in the Lyme Commercial District, egg soils are not counted. So they were able to gain some space by removing those egg soils. And then they have increased the size of what to make it conforming.
Okay.
Yeah, you sent that out, but I couldn't really see it too well.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I couldn't print it, for some reason it didn't.
Yeah, I still think there's a mathematical error in that they didn't put the proper number of square feet for the 6.54 acres. And I was looking at it online, but what do they have there for the number of square feet?
285,000.
Yeah, it's not that number, it's 284,
Do you want this open or closed,
882.
guys?
You can leave it open.
So that's still, I mean, I don't think it, well, I'm assuming it doesn't matter, and I think that, I don't know if it does matter or not, whether they were working from square feet to acreage or acreage to square feet, I don't know, but if you multiply, go ahead, 6.54 by, 43,560, you get 284,882. So, well, see, I don't know if they surveyed it to get square feet, or if they surveyed it
Eric
to get acreage.
is here on the.
Okay, good.
I sure am.
Okay, so, did you survey in square feet, or did you survey in acreage?
Well, it's one and the same, their numbers are interchangeable, so, it is a conversion, it's a mathematical conversion. So it's,
Yeah, if you multiply 6.54.
I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm doing that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty sure. 0.54, wait,
No, it didn't round it off. No, it's just,
40,000 square feet,
6.54. Yeah, it's 284,882 square feet.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what you put on your plan. But I didn't know, like, did you survey it and have 285,000 square feet and just convert that to
Well,
acres?
no, it's somewhere I'll have to take a look. No, what I did is probably did an area calculation based on polygon and used a number from, the property dialog box in that polygon and copy pasted it and divided it by a number. So somewhere it looks like I transposed a number.
Okay, so.
But we're talking what, we're talking 200 square feet?
Well, it
Right?
just, the survey should show the appropriate area, that's all I'm getting at, and I don't know what
No,
that is.
absolutely, yep, absolutely, but you certainly have enough area even if we subtract that 200 square feet, right?
You have, well, I'm assuming that the 284,000 is the lower number because the 285,000 is more, so yes, it could be that there's actually more than 2.01, as a zoning minimum lot size, but,
Sure.
whatever it is, it's incorrect as it's put on your survey, and that should not be recorded in that way.
Yep, okay, so I can make a revision to that chart.
Are you saying, or Vicky, do you believe that, that's going to affect the acreage that he finally ended up at,
It
or
seems
not?
like he still has a zoning compliant lot, because 285,000 square feet will give you more than 2.01 acres,
Correct.
which is what we
Yeah.
need. It's just the
That's
math
right.
is wrong, and the
Oh, it should be
recorded,
right.
the recorded area should be a correct area.
Cause I'm wondering if we could approve this contingent upon that being, corrected, or whether we're gonna end up with another survey that's got a little bit different area, that we have to be concerned with.
Well, seeing that it's mostly there, it just,
But
so
it still
I'm.
gets more than 2 acres, even if
Yeah,
it's 20 foot.
no, it's fine, it just needs, it can't be recorded in that way when there's a kind of a glaring
Yeah.
mathematical error.
Well, it
Right.
seems like, if you say, we could. approve
I'd like to
contingent
be
on
able to
that.
approve this
Yeah.
contingent
Yeah,
upon.
just to change the number, make the numbers correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I was trying to go back and refresh my memory, David, on what else we were,
There was an abutter that needed to be changed?
Yep, that has been changed.
It's all in the.
Yeah, the butter is this one here.
Yep.
It was Pickle Dish Hollow, I believe, and that's been,
What was that name?
Pickle Dish Hollow, LLC.
that's one of Brett's LLCs.
This is what they want to waive.
It's up, isn't it up on Town Line Road, Pickle Dish Hollow?
I don't know,
It's near Mud Turtle Pond,
was it?
yeah.
Okay.
No, it's, I thought it was, past the skiway.
I don't think it matters
Yeah,
where.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's past the
Thank you,
skiway.
David.
So we're looking for the density calculations to be corrected and.
Yep. And that was my major concern,
Yeah, and
That's
then
why I looked at the
we
numbers.
we had agreed to, consider the application complete with waivers.
Yep.
The only question I had was, David, you were checking to see whether they could get a driveway that met
We-
specs, and you can do
They
that.
can do that, absolutely. I have no issues with that at all.
Okay.
So that complies with 11%?
Yep.
Okay.
And I just wondered, you said you had asked town council about whether the historic limitations or
I have not
architectural.
gotten that done yet because I have not received a full application for the house. And
Okay,
so, but I believe, I have seen some plans and I believe the plans are compliant, but I will check with town council on.
okay, it just, that there are trees there now, there may not be trees later, so
No, I will be checking with town council, but I don't think it affects the subdivision as
Right,
is.
okay. Well, I think one of the things we're supposed to call out is whether or not there are restrictions on the lot, and, so I didn't know if that applied or not still, but,
They do, right?
I don't know, because it could have been released by, you know, the restriction was held by the Lyme Home Valley Association, and it didn't get passed on a deed, so, I don't know.
Yeah, because otherwise they'd have to build a house that
Well,
has a look to it.
I believe that the house will meet those requirements anyway. But it's something that I will be checking into.
Well, it's like the Maker Houston house is like a modern house, doesn't look traditional at all.
Yeah.
So,
But that doesn't have anything to do with the easement that's on this property, does it?
well, I just wondered, you know, is it like what is in the neighborhood, or what do you say it's, you know, traditional architecture when you have this existing house in the neighborhood already that's very
Right.
modern looking, so good luck with that. But it's, we're down a rabbit hole.
They
No need
didn't
to worry
write
about
it,
that.
they didn't write it.
Yeah, I'm
successfully.
okay with approving this if the numbers get changed, and David, would you please check them when they come in and make sure that the math is correct?
Yep.
So we have a motion from Vicky, do we have a second? David seconding it. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
David, aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, so,
This is more the Vicky that I'm used to, you know? She was going soft on us there for a second.
So Eric, are you still there?
I am.
Yeah, so I think that everything's all set, we just need you to make that one change, and then, if you send the 2 paper copies and a Mylar to me, I will get, them signed off by the chairman, and then we can get them recorded.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Okay, next item is the minutes of, approving the minutes of December 11th. I had just a couple of edits to it. On the page 1, the last paragraph, the second line, there's an approximate 25 acre.
Oh.
And actually, above that of the first line of that paragraph, I think you might have cut and pasted some information. I think what we wanna say, what we really wanna say is the applicant requested the larger approximately to a 25 acre.
Yep.
Rather than we. Page 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 6th paragraph down, Chair Mengy voiced a concern about the driveway. The second line, marked on the plat, may not meet. I was suggesting driveway grade specification of the zoning ordinance. Be a little more specific.
Not to interrupt, but there's
Go
I had a
ahead.
typo on the 7th down, where it starts the planning and zoning administrator. Instead of the, shouldn't it say he asked?
Yep.
At the last sentence there?
Yep.
Yeah, just put he asked, just a typo.
Yep. Page 3, the next to last line, under the housing survey discussion, we had a, Nat moved this, and then I think, Tim, didn't you second the motion? You usually indicate who seconded
Yeah,
this.
I don't remember exactly, probably.
And I think Lynn Harshell has 2 Ls, yeah, just above that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
In item 4, with respect to the housing survey discussions, the end of that first paragraph, a legal opinion is something that's very specific and has a specific meaning. It's a written document that council would provide opining on something, you know, and we didn't get that. I would just say, instead of to give town council time to provide, time to give a legal opinion, I would just say to allow time to consult with town council.
And
Yep.
doesn't cancellation have 2 Ls there?
Yes.
Yeah.
and Rich, I do have some comments on that item 4, so I'll let other people make other comments.
Okay, any other comments? Go ahead, Rich.
Okay, thank you. So, I do have a statement regarding this. I'm gonna hand out copies for everyone here. Would you pass the address? Thank you. So first off, I have retained, I'm gonna.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
what does this have to do with the minutes that we're working on?
I will get to that.
No, just tell me, what does this have to do with the
All right.
minutes?
I believe that the item 4 does not suggest what the, it does properly suggest what the minutes, the meeting, and so I'm gonna ask for, a modification to it. I did wanna read this statement, which is, first off, I have retained counsel in this matter. Second, I do want to restate what I said in the last meeting. I resent the implication that I'm putting my finger on the scale or that this is undue influence. This is insulting or at best potentially insulting at best or potentially defamatory. A survey of the resident attitudes about housing issues is an informal attempt to gauge public sentiment. There are no provisions to detect multiple submissions. There is no way to factor out the river of current press and internet articles regarding housing or of private conversations. Moreover, this is clearly a matter of public concern. Planning board members do not forfeit their First Amendment rights by virtue of their office. To the contrary, discussions of matter of public concern lie at the very core of First Amendment protections. Nothing about publishing my thoughts on my own website was improper. Nothing about it was unlawful, and nothing in town policy or New Hampshire law prohibits it. I don't understand why the board would decide not to interpret the results of the housing survey, but the draft minutes make it feel as if the board was shifting blame onto me, while the board is under no obligation to implement the preferences expressed by the community. It has a clear obligation not to defame a private citizen in an effort to justify disregarding that person's opinions. I have 2 requests. I request that the board issue a clear written statement that my post on my website was protected by the First Amendment and that publishing it was in no way improper, unlawful, or prohibited. And then this comes to the question you asked just a minute ago, Rich. I request the minutes for this item 4 of the previous meeting be revised as follows. Item 4, housing survey discussions. The board discussed the results of the housing survey. Nat Niles moved not to interpret the results and that the data should not be used. Chair Mengy called for a vote. The motion passed unanimously. I would absolutely accept a change to that language to say that Tim seconded it. Thank you for listening.
So I don't quite understand, is there a change to this,
Yes.
these minutes?
Item 4 should simply say those 4 lines that are listed there in the document. The board discussed the results. Nat moved, Tim seconded, and Chair Mengy called for a vote, which passed unanimously.
I'm gonna suggest that we defer voting on the minutes, given that Mr. Brown is threatening litigation in this. I don't think we should do anything until we've consulted with town council.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is
I agree, I think we'll have to table the minutes for the time being. Okay. I think we can,
Would you adjourn?
we have one more
Oh.
ordinance thing to.
Sorry, this is my 4th meeting this week.
Only 4, didn't it?
Well, I hope we've spent enough time on this that and we've had time to noodle on it, that we are able to approve this, so that it can be put in the mill for inclusion.
There are a bunch of typos in it, and also, so I think those need to be changed, and I also believe that if you have a 7, that it should not be followed by a 1, it should be followed by an A. I also feel like the third one should be, you know, yeah, I think there needs to be some wording changes, in it. Even though we've talked about it, it doesn't change content, but, you know, there shouldn't be typos, and I think it needs to be presented in same information, just in a slightly different way.
So what do you propose?
Okay, let me get there.
This also goes on that written ballot, right?
Yes.
During, on that
Yes.
voting day, it's not discussed in town
No.
meeting.
Right, this would go,
Because it's a
No.
zoning amendment.
Okay, so, we're really just looking at number 7. And underground, okay, so 7. So it should be followed, like 7 should be followed by not a 1, but by an A, B, C, there, so.
Are those small or
Small.
caps?
Well, I think they're small because additional provisions is a capital, but it just shouldn't be by 1. But that's, you know. And then what we're doing is we're laying out conditions under which these propane tanks can be permitted. So I think all we wanna say is, for B, we don't have to say underground propane tanks shall be permitted only, because what we're doing is we're talking about conditions. So, with the conditions, we just cross out everything on that first line, and designed and properly anchored to prevent flotation, not property. So designed, so that's a condition, designed and properly anchored to prevent flotation,
Yep.
okay? As certified by
Oh.
an engineer or other qualified professional,
So
period.
You say the design and installation, I mean,
No, designed and properly anchored, because that has to do with
Oh,
design, okay?
As certified by,
By an engineer, not and engineer, or other qualified professional. And that's B. And then C should be,
So we're getting rid of the elevation of seasonal high water.
no, C
She's
is
gonna put that
elevation,
into-
is submission of the seasonal high water table elevation. And you don't have to say included in the application, because this is a condition, that submission of the seasonal high water table elevation. And I don't understand why, in lieu of determining seasonal high, that it be assumed that ground surface elevation, why is that there?
I was thinking that that would be helpful, so that if an applicant did not want to spend the money to have a designer come out to do test pits, that they could just make an assumption that the seasonal high water table is at the ground surface, and
Well,
then they
isn't
could
that-
just design
Well, then it's
for
not
that.
underground, and it's a propane tank.
No,
it's
it
above
would
ground.
be, it would be designed with enough ballast to be buried.
you would
Oh,
assume
I
that
see. So
the
you're
high
putting
water
it in the
table is ground
water.
level.
Okay, so you're putting it in the water.
Well, either way, they're gonna probably be putting
I
it
got
in the
it.
water.
Okay, all right, okay, I was not envisioning that it would still be underground if it was, okay.
Yeah, you're just assuming
Okay,
where the water.
so
level is.
then in lieu, that,
Then you don't have to hire an engineer to determine that, you just figure it.
okay.
And they don't have to dig a
Okay,
hole and all that.
So then we have submission of that and, period, in lieu of determining the seasonal high water table, comma, lowercase, the tank installation may be designed assuming ground surface elevation to be the seasonal high water table. And then D
So
would be.
can you go, I'm a little bit behind you taking notes on that, so,
Okay,
you adding a C saying submission of the seasonal high water table.
period.
Period.
And then
Then-
what's there, just say in lieu of determining the seasonal high water table, and then put a comma, and then lowercase T for the,
Vicki, do you have this written down?
no, I don't.
Okay.
It's just the same stuff, it's just repunctuating and
Yeah,
changing
no, I was
capitalizations. It's-
just trying
it's-
to
Yeah,
make things less painful
Yeah.
for David.
yep. And then three becomes D. And all you have to say is an installation plan approved by the Lyme Fire Department. Because you don't, I mean, it's a condition, so it's assumed that it's being submitted, and it doesn't need to be submitted to them, it just needs to be approved by them. We want an approved installation plan.
We just get rid of it, shall be submitted to and.
Right,
Yeah.
right. An installation plan approved by, and take out the from, approved by the Lyme Fire Department.
Yeah.
And then I'm okay with what we have.
So is there, do we need to worry about, or how does this actually happen? So David waits till he gets an approval from the Lyme Fire Department, and then he can issue a permit for it? Is that how this would
Yep.
work? Okay.
Right, and these are all underground
Well, hold it, no,
tanks.
it's not David, it's the zoning board. Because the zoning
Right,
board
it would
has.
have to be part of the.
Oh, it's under the
submission.
special
Zoning board,
exception.
yeah, the zoning board would have to get these things.
It would be part of the submission to the
Right.
zoning board of adjustment
Right.
for the special exception.
Yep.
Right, and these are only underground tanks.
Underground propane tanks.
Right. Underground propane. Not so, yeah. Above ground tanks,
Are-
those, nothing, right?
Right, they're
Yeah.
allowed.
Anyway.
So those are my typos and just
No, that's good.
having the outline format kind of followed.
Okay, so is there any other discussion on this? I think Vicky's revisions are apropos.
Yeah.
David, we're running up against the clock on this, what needs to happen?
The next thing is if the board wants to send this to a public hearing, the next meeting is the 22nd. We can meet that deadline. If the board decides to make any changes at that public hearing, then you will not have time to submit it. You have to, there's a 14-day period between the two meetings.
To get it on this year's town warrant.
Right, to get it on the warrant. And I believe it's the 9th is when things have to be,
But if we don't make any changes, then.
then
it
at the
can
public
just
hearing,
go
then there's,
at the public
it can
hearing.
go on the warrant.
Well, it seems reasonably likely that we would not make any changes, since we've already,
Yeah, well, that's,
unless somebody at the public hearing decides.
And I'm not saying anything.
Oh,
I'll
good.
just
Rich,
let
okay.
you all know that.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to know if there's any typos or we, what exactly is a Scrivener's error, and can we make corrections through a Scrivener's error at the
I
public hearing?
will retype this up and get it out to the board as soon as I can and let you review. And then we
That'll
can,
be it.
yeah, just if
Final
you see
thing, yeah.
not wording errors, but just typos
Yeah,
in what I've done, then let me know and we can correct it. But otherwise,
Yeah.
so, we don't need a motion or anything like that?
you need motion to send it to town, to send it to a public hearing
Oh, okay.
on the 22nd.
I'll second.
Okay, so we've got a motion by David and a second by Tim. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, it's all good. Okay. So, quarter to eight, tonight.
Eric has,
Who is this?
Eric,
Surveyor.
survey.
He ended up.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Eric.
Eric, you had a question?
Yeah, so I just think we need to clarify the math and the chart, because I misunderstood the way you guys presented this to me. When I was asked, did I survey in square feet or acreage? Well, they're both one and the same. So the total lot is 6.54 acres, or 285,002.41 square feet. If you divide that total square footage by what constitutes an acre, 43,560, you come up with 6.54. My math is right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I'm happy to go through this chart with you a little bit more detail. I think, quite honestly, I was probably suffering from a little brain fog after sitting through the first hour of the meeting. I think that the math is correct, and I think the plan should be signed off on tonight.
I use
So
my
you guys-
calculator, I swear, and
But it's interesting, because if you multiply
Yeah, well, I got a
6.54
calculator too, I did the same thing, and I'm telling you that, you divide 200,
if you multiply 6.54 times 43,560, you get 284,882 feet.
okay, well, yeah, but there's some rounding, so let's do this just the opposite, 285,002.41.
285.
Divide that, okay, 285,000.002.41 divided by 43560.
6.542.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's maybe because of the 275.
Yeah, 200 square feet of rounding.
Yep, you're right.
So
Two
the
hundred
number's
square feet
correct.
of rounding?
Well,
Error?
because you get 6.5427550, so you actually get a little bit more than 6.54 acres.
Right.
So
And that's
it's,
why
so you're
the
dealing
difference
with
is-
significant
Right.
digits. Now you started to, you're discussing, when you're doing this kind of math, you're talking about the significant digits of the numbers that you're
Yep.
applying.
Yep,
But, so when you round that off, it's still the same number, it's still 6.54.
yeah, I just that
But-
284,000 is different than 285,000, that was my problem.
Right, but what I'm saying is that the actual square area of the lot that I
Right.
created per the meets and bounds
Right,
is 285,002.41 square feet.
okay,
Because he's saying that's the actual acreage.
right,
Surveyed.
right,
It's
right,
used-
right, okay, that's why I was asking, what did you survey, the, square feet or the acreage?
But so it's one and the same thing, it's the same thing,
Okay,
You're
it's the
both
same
right.
thing.
Well, other than
You know.
it's not 6.54000
Right.
acres, it's 6.54 with a little bit,
2.7,
with a little bit
2.75,
extra.
Right,
0.505.
right.
Well, yeah, I mean, how far out, at what point how far do you carry the
Yeah,
decimal points?
yeah,
You're dealing with
okay.
significant digits.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, I'm
Interesting.
working with significant digits,
Okay,
so,
You satisfied, Vicky?
I'm satisfied,
All right, good.
awesome.
I'm
I
satisfied.
appreciate that,
Do we need to redo that motion?
No, we can then just sign this, right?
Yeah, it was subject to verification of the numbers.
Yeah.
Subject to having
It's
a
really
print that
concerning
has
that
the
Yoda
right
is
numbers.
watching
Yeah.
this meeting.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad,
Watching us here.
thank you very much.
No, you-
okay,
You guys have a busy night, I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay,
thanks for the correction.
yeah.
Thank you for running that down.
Yep, thank you, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so,
So David, our next meeting is, what's happening the next meeting?
The next meeting, Lou Partial has requested to meet with the board over the survey.
All right,
And then you'll also have a public hearing on
this.
the zoning, the
Shoreline.
shoreline zoning amendment, not the petition warrant article,
Right. And that's it, so far.
so far.
I really am unclear, as one of our alternate members is retaining counsel, as to why or whether we should entertain discussion on this.
Or we should talk to council about it.
Yeah, I will.
It's
Okay.
absolutely right, we may not wanna have that meeting, but we should talk to town council before.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. The saga continues.
Move to adjourn?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so moved, so. so
Thanks,
adjourned.
guys.
Australia.
Lucky him. Is it summer there?